Your Excellency, the honorable panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Happy Katiba Day. I want to start on that note because it has to be a happy Katiba Day. On this day, 16 years ago, it was a bright morning when many people gathered at Uhuru Park. I was one of them. And there was renewed hope in this republic that we, the people, were giving ourselves a new constitution. And on that day, we witnessed the birth of the Second Republic. On that day, we hoisted a national flag at Uhuru Park. It's there to date. When you look at that flag, always remember that represents the constitution that we're talking about today. Your Excellency, as we mark this 16th anniversary of our Katiba, we also ought to actually recognize that it is now a national day. And a national day means that we may do whatever else we want to do with ourselves throughout the year, but on one day, we shall anchor ourselves to the supreme law of the land and to the sovereignty of the people of Kenya. And that day is today. Please, let's clap for that. When we say we the people give ourselves a new constitution, many people may take that for granted. But actually this morning on our show, Fixing the Nation on NTV, we actually asked ourselves the question, if you went around many African countries and asked the people just ordinarily, ndugu jirani, hapa kwenu mna katiba? Some will actually not be able to answer and tell you whether they have a constitution or not. Go to any part of this republic today and mention the word Katiba, and people know that we have a constitution. That anchors the fact that we, the people, are the owners of this constitution. We are the sovereign in this constitution. We delegate our sovereignty to institutions and to public offices. And for that reason, we had the various institutions speaking earlier today, and we also have the very top of our arms of government on this panel. Let's clap for them as we start this conversation. I want to start by just acknowledging some of the words that you said, Your Excellency, in your remarks to set the scene for today. You said accountability cannot end with defending institutional territory, observing procedure, or publishing reports. Ultimately, we must account for outcomes, whether we have protected the sovereignty of the people, upheld human dignity, preserved constitutional order, used public resources responsibly, and brought the rights guaranteed by our Constitution within the reach of more citizens. There's no greater responsibility than that's given to the people in our panel today. And I want to start with you, Your Excellency. When you took the oath of office, the first oath of office that you took was the oath of affirmation of allegiance, in which you said, I may remind you, and I'll use the names, please allow me to use your name. I, William Samoei Ruto, in full realization of the high calling I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya, do swear that I'll be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of Kenya, that I'll obey, preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution of Kenya as by law established and all other laws of the Republic, and that I'll protect and uphold the sovereignty, integrity, and dignity of the people of Kenya. Our conversation this afternoon, Your Excellency, with the permission with the honorable panelists, I just wanted to make it very short. It's not accountability. Accountability for these high offices. At the end of this, the program has you coming to make your closing remarks. So we'll not even do the closing remarks. We'll just do quick accountability for the person and the office that you hold. What have you done to uphold the Constitution? Your Excellency, you swore to obey, preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution of Kenya. Are you aware, sir, that your cabinet is unconstitutional?
Thank you very much, Eric. I am fully aware that the court has made a determination and given me time to realizing that that is work in progress to be able to do what I need to do. But in that context, let me speak to my oath of office in a broader context, and to speak to this day, Katiba Day. And as I have said in my earlier statement, this is not just a ritual. This is a time for us to reflect and account for what we have done in 16 years with respect to the tenets, the principles, the mandate, and the requirement of our Constitution. And putting that in the context of my oath of office and being accountable for that oath of office, and putting it in the context of what, again, I said earlier in terms of how do we account for the authority that we exercise and whether that is making impact on the people of Kenya, especially on what you said, whether more and more citizens are closer to the rights that the Constitution envisaged. And I will say the following, that by way of accountability, when we seek a mandate like the way I did, I made commitments to the people of Kenya. And those commitments were not just statements. They were not just slogans. They were commitments that ultimately I must be held account, because that is what the Constitution demands of me as president. And I would want to put it in this context. Number one, I made commitments about how to transform the nation and what I need to do. And I made proposals to the people of Kenya that this is how I intend to stabilize the economy. This is how I intend to make sure that we have access to health getting to the majority of citizens. This is how I intend to work on making sure that there is decent housing as it's required by the Constitution. This is how education that is provided for as an obligation to government in the Constitution, this is what we are going to do. This is how we are going to work on access to water and all the other requirements of the Constitution. And I can confidently tell the nation today that subsequent to my election and my commitment that I will be faithful to the Constitution, we have done whatever we needed to do, difficult as it may have been, to stabilize our economy. Today, our economy is the 6th largest economy in Africa. Our interest rates have come down. Our exchange rates have come down and stabilized. Our inflation has come down and stabilized. And our sovereign debt position is way different from what it was. We did not only, avoid the default. We've gone ahead to create a much more stable economy.
Allow me to bring you back to my question.
Just let me, so that I don't lose my trend of thought.
Okay.
Let me say that often I have been asked, you committed yourself that you will reduce on debt and on borrowing. And I want to answer that question in this forum because prudent management of public resources is part of accountability, is part of accounting by leaders. You know, sometimes we reduce accountability to just be about, corruption and those other things, which are fundamental. But the worst form of corruption is to make a commitment that you have no intention of keeping.
True.
And so when I made a commitment that we are going to think of how to develop our country without burdening ourselves with too much borrowing or debt, and sometimes disproportionately disadvantaging generations that come after us.
Right.
I can say on this podium today, if you look at where we were in terms of debt and where we are today, we have significantly, by multiples, reduced the rate of acquisition of debt in our country. Let me give you an example. When Moi left office, we had a sovereign debt of 630 billion. That is what Kibaki inherited. In 10 years, Kibaki took that sovereign debt to 1.8 trillion. That is 3 times, by a multiple of 3, roughly. When my brother, President Uhuru, left office in 2022, he left behind a debt of 10.3 trillion. It had grown by 5 times, 500% in 10 years. In my 5 years, that debt has grown from 10.3 trillion to 13 trillion. In 5 years, that debt has not grown by multiples. It has grown by 27%. And therefore, the commitment I made that while we will continue to invest and develop our country, we will do it in such a manner that we reduce on borrowing, we reduce on debt, and we grow our economy sustainably. So I'm just giving an example of how accountable one must be.
So back to my question, sir.
I will come to your question. I just want
to phrase it again.
Yes.
So that we don't lose track of what we are saying. And you've used the words that I do not want to repeat, but let me just use them. Worst form of commitment, of corruption, is making commitments that you do not keep.
Yes.
You made a commitment in your gender charter to have a 50% representation of each gender in your cabinet. Today, your cabinet is unconstitutionally composed of the requirement not more than 2/3 of the same gender. I just want to seek, because the issue here is constitutional accountability, Your Excellency.
Correct.
So in that regard, because this sends a strong signal to the rest of the Republic, what is your answer to that? Why is the cabinet unconstitutional? What are you going to do about it? there is a court order that has not been vacated by any other court that has given you until the 28th of October to reconstitute your cabinet.
Correct. Precisely what I'm telling you is, in the context of commitments that you make, you may not necessarily get 100%, but you can get 80%. In your estimation, have you passed that exam or did you not pass? If the commitments you made, you have achieved 80%. There are some commitments that are work in progress. But what I was trying to point to you is that of the commitments I made to the people of Kenya, commitments on the economy, commitments on education, commitments on agriculture, commitments on housing, commitments on making sure we control our debt, commitments on making sure that we have universal health coverage, I can confidently say we are at 80%. That does not mean we have discharged every commitment. There are commitments that are outstanding. Among them is that one on making sure that we respect the two-thirds gender principle.
Will you reconstitute the cabinet?
It is, that's a much more simpler thing to say.
Okay, let me just...
But let me just, we are speaking in context.
Yes.
Don't make it simplistic.
I am not, sir.
Because, there are many people who are telling me, for example, I heard from exactly what you're saying, you must get 100% for you to have passed. I don't think that is fair to say, for you to have passed, you must get 100%. I think what we are saying is, have we, in the collective assessment of the people of Kenya,
yes,
have we kept our part of the bargain substantively? You remember I used the words progressively in my statement several times. Yes. Have we made progress progressively? Yes, we have done. Have we done 100%? No, we have not got 100%. Some of it, as was said here by leaders, is work in progress. And its attainment may not happen today. Just the same way, the court has ruled that Parliament is unconstitutional because of the two-thirds gender rule.
Yes.
That determination was made by court, I think, almost 5 years ago, 6 years ago, to be exact. But it's work in progress, I did make proposals myself to Parliament on how we could attain the two-thirds gender rule. It is still work in progress in Parliament. And I think progressively, without being too aggressive against ourselves, that is work in progress.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. I want to move to my leadership, the Honorable Chief Justice. As head of the judicial arm of government, the judiciary, we the people, created the judiciary and wanted the judiciary to be the ultimate arbiter and the one that upholds constitutionalism and the rule of law in this country. Madam Chief Justice, there have been questions of integrity within the judiciary. You've addressed them previously, but you continue to address them. The question that I asked to you is, would Kenyans believe that their judiciary is functional when questions of integrity keep arising towards it and they don't see progress being made?
Thank you very much, our moderator. Thank you, Your Excellency, for inviting me to this forum. I'm honored, greatly honored, to participate in this forum where we are looking at our constitution and asking ourselves whether it has worked for us, what we need to do to make it work better. Now, when I look at the judiciary, we agree that judicial authority comes from the people. The people are sovereign, and therefore we are servants of the people. And whatever we do in serving them, we always ask whether we are meeting the expectations of the people, whether we are responding to their expectations, whether justice is truly a lived reality in Kenya. So this constitution has really strengthened the judiciary, because now judicial independence is constitutionally entrenched. But we take it that judicial independence goes hand in hand with accountability. We ask ourselves whether in the way we deliver justice, are we reaching out to every Kenyan? Can every Kenyan access justice? And that is where we begin, Latif, to tell ourselves that delivery of justice services is like any other service. And therefore, we have a duty to reach to the very last mile with judicial services. And when we looked around, the number of Kenyans who can access formal justice services are a paltry 17%. The rest of Kenyans look for justice elsewhere through other means. They go to the chiefs, they go to their religious leaders, they go to their community, to their elders to seek justice. And therefore we asked ourselves as judiciary, and especially me as the Chief Justice, am I only a Chief Justice of the 17%? No. So we must net everybody. And this is why we are working with communities to expand the multi-door approach to justice to reach the alternative justice system, which is also a command of the Constitution, that we should promote NDR, alternative justice system, mediation, negotiation, reconciliation, and all that, so that every Kenyan can have a choice. Do I want to go to the formal court? Do I want to go to the alternative? And Latif, we are being celebrated even by the Commonwealth for having been able to link the informal justice system with the formal justice system. We have ukumbis or tribunals or community sessions where people are resolving disputes, and thanks be to this constitution, they are able now to come with those agreements. We have trained them on fair trial methods so that when they agree, we only ask ourselves whether this agreement meets the constitutional thresholds. Mm-hmm. We've been, and we have established ourselves in 16 counties where we have NJS. We have court-annexed mediation now in over 120 court stations where people can opt for mediation, negotiations, to agree on their disputes, and we are adopting those disputes as the orders of the court. You talked about corruption, and I think the priest who did the introductory remarks was very apt, that the manure that is eating Kenya is corruption, is issues of integrity. And I think all the speakers have spoken to it. For us in the judiciary, it's very, very serious. We have no other currency to trade in. The executive has the power of the sword, they have the power of the purse. We only have public trust to trade in. And therefore, Kenyans must have confidence in the judiciary, in the independence of the judiciary. And this independence cuts both ways. It's both independence for us to be able to make decisions without any interference from anybody or from any institution. But also, it's an independence that ensures that the citizenry can have confidence in the judiciary.
Yeah.
So it's both ways, and we are required to be accountable. We have done everything as a country to enact laws, beginning with the Constitution and other laws. What I would like to say is that corruption, in all its facets, is a criminal offense. And we have taken the front row in the judiciary to tell Kenyans that we operate a zero tolerance policy to corruption. We even do a daily briefing in our courts to tell Kenyans, when you come to court, you will not be asked for a bribe. You will not be asked for any facilitation. Please do not bring a bribe to the court.
Right.
We have worked with the NCAJ, the National Council on the Administration of Justice, to develop guidelines that will help us implement these laws against corruption. And we are implementing them in the judiciary. But it is a societal problem relative that requires Kenyans to say no to corruption. It requires a national conversation, because as much as we try to insulate ourselves in the judiciary, we are within this ecosystem where people believe in giving a bribe, or even believing somebody who has no connection with the judge or the magistrate, that I know the magistrate, I know the judge, I will fix your case, I collect money to go and take to the judge. The judge or the magistrate may not even know, but sometimes they know.
Yeah.
And therefore, I've been saying it is wrong. We as judges and magistrates and judicial staff cannot be dispensing justice with one hand and committing a crime with the other. Any citizen who comes across a judge or a magistrate or a judicial staff asking for a bribe, we ask for cooperation.
Thank you, Madam CJ. Just a quick follow-up on that. Citizens told the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in their EACC 2025 survey that court magistrates attract the highest average bribe, apparently 164,000 shillings. Now, the one question I want to ask you, now that we are now introspecting 16 years in, can the judiciary really police and weed itself of corruption?
Yes and no, by everybody who has taken a oath of office to defend the Constitution, to defend the rule of law, to say no to corruption. But out there are many people posing as agents of the judges. They are the ones collecting money to bring to the judiciary. And Kenyans themselves, why are they giving money to come and bring to the judiciary? So we alone cannot, because like me as the Chief Justice, with my 2 eyes, corruption, I was told, is like, is it sodomy, or is it, what offense takes place, adultery, which takes place in the dark places. So with my 2 eyes, how can I know who is negotiating a bribe in their houses, in their chambers, in the hidden places where they do those things? So it's a societal problem,
Okay.
that we all need to embrace and say no to corruption. Say the manure that is eating Kenya, like it happened in New York, is corruption.
Thank you, Madam
And
CJ.
therefore, we need to say no to it.
Asante. Thank you very much, Madam CJ. I want to move to the National Assembly, represented by the Deputy Speaker, the Honorable Gladys Boss. When we, the people, created the legislative arms of government, and Parliament in particular, we created a Parliament that would represent us, that would create laws that we would follow, and that would oversight the executive. Many complaints have been made in the public about the Parliament's role of oversighting the executive. Not just the 13th Parliament, the 12th Parliament, the 11th Parliament under the 2010 Constitution. Is Parliament, as constituted, maybe politically or otherwise, able to properly oversight the executive?
Thank you, Latif. And before I answer what your statement comes from, I first want to say we are here to discuss Katiba at 16 and what we have done as the National Assembly to implement the Constitution. So let me start with that, because that's our business today. If you look at Article 43, which the President has spoken about very passionately, on the issues of health, if you look at the Social Health Authority Act, Parliament, National Assembly passed it. If you look at the Primary Health Act, it was the National Assembly that passed it. If you look at the Emergency, Chronic and Critical Illness Fund, that is the National Assembly. If you look at the Digital Health Act, that's the National Assembly. So on the issue of health, under Article 43, we have made our part. On education, currently we have several laws. We have already, just yesterday, we were debating the an amendment to the Basic Education Act, because again, that's a right. It's a socio-economic right under Article 43. And further to that, there's more amendments that are going to the Higher Education Loans Board, the Tertiary Institutions Act, the Education Assessment Act, and so on. All those are ongoing. If you look at the right to water, again, we passed the National Water and Storage Authority Act, and that is already in place. If you look at the issue of housing, the Housing Levy Act was passed in Parliament. If you look at the changes that were made to our savings at the National Social Security Fund, again, that law was amended by Parliament to be able to allow an increased amount so that we can have increased savings in the country, so that we are not borrowing money from other countries, but we can borrow our own citizens' money. If you look at Social Security, on the money that is given to senior citizens by government, again, that took an act of Parliament. So we can categorically say that as the National Assembly, on the manifesto of the Ruto administration, we have been able to do our part. On the issue of the right to food, again, when you see some of the programs and some of the laws that we are passing, is to ensure that we are able to attain the issue of food security. The courts, on many cases, has castigated Parliament over public participation, and that's why the Public Participation Act is currently before the House and has gone to the Senate. Again, the National Infrastructure Fund, that's an act of Parliament. The National Sovereign Fund Act, that's from the National Assembly. The government-owned enterprises, that's also that. And just to tell you that Parliament is sensitive to the people, because we represent the people, and that's what the spirit of our Constitution says. When we had the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, and the prices of fuel was going to go very high, immediately, in exactly one day, we sat until midnight and amended the Value-Added Tax Act to be able to bring the price of fuel to at least an acceptable level. So yes, Parliament is doing its part to be able to implement the Constitution. On the matters of oversight, every single day, when we are not sitting in plenary, we are calling to account the executive. I know that the Auditor General was here, and yes, you many times hear the voice of the Auditor General when she has audited a certain institution. Most of the time, it's announced publicly, even before it comes to Parliament. Remember, it does not end with the Auditor General. That report, the Auditor General must bring to the National Assembly, then the relevant committees review them, and then are able to give sanctions where required or give recommendations where required. In the past, Parliament was behind in about 6 or 7 years. But today I can confirm to you as chairperson of the Liaison Committee, the chairpersons have confirmed that Public Accounts Committee is now at 2024-2025 financial year. PIC, the same thing. So we have managed to review the reports. And the challenge had been before that there was only one committee dealing with it. After that, the PIC committee was split into thematic areas so that they can be able to work faster. We've deployed several staff to them to be able to do that. So yes, oversight is live and indeed. And today, we go on recess as Parliament. And people think that we go on holiday. Actually, every single committee is sitting for 3 straight weeks to complete their reports because we are also alive to the fact that it's a year. So yes, I can confidently say that Parliament has done its job, continues to do, and and we have had continuous improvement. We recently had a state of Parliament report, and we're able to see that we've done this much and we need to make certain changes. Like now we know the outstanding orders have to be changed so that we can have the Public Accounts Committee can be in four of them in thematic areas so that we can work faster for better oversight and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And let's account for that. Parliament has passed legislation. The question is, has Parliament processed legislation or passed legislation? When it comes to executive oversight, is Parliament oversighting the executive, or is Parliament, for lack of a better word, tapping the executive on the back?
Not at all.
On the wrist?
I think, when you say that we are passing government bills, you must remember we have someone called the majority leader in Parliament. The single job of the majority leader is to table government bills. Because if the government has to work, the laws have to be passed. So that is his job. Then there is private members' bills, and then the minority also are able to bring various bills, like the bill on the Basic Education Amendment Act yesterday was by Honorable Oluoch, who is from the minority side, and he has been prosecuting it for almost 2 years. So yes, Parliament is not a rubber stamp, as you try and say. That's a rumor by the media. All right.
The Honorable Speaker, Moses Wetangula, recently spoke of some MPs receiving letters for appointment of teachers. And I know that matter was live, even in Parliament, by some members of Parliament yesterday. As the head of Parliament, how do you respond to this? Is Parliament an extension of the executive?
Okay,
or the recruitment agency of the executive?
Okay, Latif, let me remind you again politely that we're here to discuss and take stock of Katiba at 16.
Indeed it is.
And so I have not come here to discuss rumors that are out there. What you can do, when I come to your TV station, that will be a valid question to ask. So I politely decline to answer.
Okay. Let me remind all of us that we are here to account for Katiba at 16. It is our constitution. The offices that we created are accountable to the people of Kenya in all things that they do, whether they are passing laws or blocking laws. So, the Honorable Deputy Speaker, respectfully, I tell you that the question I'm asking is about accountability.
No, it's a valid question,
Parliament.
and as you said, and as I've told you, that for today's session, there's no answer to that. But I can confirm to you that yesterday, the Education Committee was waiting to summon the Teacher Service Commission, because that is the independent commission that is charged to do with recruitment of teachers. If they are doing it in a different manner other than provided by the law, then they are the ones to be called to account. And that's why I'm saying that's a conversation for another time, not today.
There's no better day than today, but let's move to the next one. Honorable Speaker, Amason Kingi, you're Speaker of the Senate. You served as the county governor for 2 terms, and you know the role of the Senate that we, the people, established is to defend and promote democracy, devolution. And I want to ask today, is the Senate protecting counties? And can you give us examples where the Senate has actually protected counties, and from what?
Thank you for that question. Indeed, the constitutional mandate of the Senate is basically that, to protect the interests of the county governments. And it does that in different fronts. First is when we are doing the division of revenue between the national government and the county governments. That is where the Senate then pronounces itself as a defender of the county governments. You will note that since inception of devolution, because of the the spirited fight by the Senate, the shareable revenue going to the counties has gradually been increasing. So yes, we have been fighting so hard to make sure that the county governments do not get a raw deal when it comes to sharing the revenue between the national government and the county governments. There are other instances, of course, where the Senate comes in to protect the county governments. You've heard of this issue that is, I believe, still very much alive. That touches on the roads, for example. There has been a push from the national government on how to reclassify roads beyond what is presently provided for under the Constitution. And I think the Senate has taken a very firm stand on how we should handle that matter, again, protecting the interests of the county governments. So yes, the Senate has been there fought on behalf of the county governments.
Have there been instances, Honorable Speaker, when the Senate has felt the national government overreaching its mandate to claw into functions of devolution?
Well, if you look at Schedule 4, for example, which demarcates the functions that are preserved of the national government and the functions that are preserved of the county governments, for the period that we have experienced devolution, there has been, of course, a delay in unbundling these functions. And, but by and large, as we speak today, at Katiba at 16, a lot has been done. And unbundling has been done. What I think is remaining is costing of those particular functions. But again, under our law, a county government can enter into an agreement with the national government. Maybe a function is a preserve of that particular county government, but they can enter into an agreement with the national government to allow the national government to actually undertake that particular function. In such a case, we cannot say the national government is overbearing.
All right, I want to just progress that conversation to, of course, the Chair of the Council of Governors, Honorable FCP Abdullahi. As governor who's also in your second term, are there instances where, as governors, you felt that the national government, and I'm not talking about the administration, I'm talking about the national government, has overshot its mandate to claw into devolution?
Thank you very much, Eric. Before I answer your question, let me set mine like everyone else was doing. Devolution has done extremely, extremely well, and it's the that everyone here that has been on this podium has said it's that one single takeout that has been very, very beneficial to Kenyans out of our 2010 constitution. And without giving numbers necessarily, if you just look at the expansion in healthcare, in agriculture, in early childhood education, the distances that have reduced for fetching water and all, the number of hospital beds, and I have the data here in a very refined manner, devolution has done extremely, extremely well. Now, on the issue of national government and the whole matter of clawback, you'll have to understand that in a robust democracy such as ours, and where we came from, you know, we were not 47 countries coming together. We were one country, and we were not coming out of war, right? We had a very strong centralized government. And the clamor for the new constitution was partly to spread that power at the center. and devolve resources and decision-making over those resources. So there'll always be areas of conflict between national and county government. And this is why we have a very elaborate architecture of intergovernmental relations. And we try as much as possible to solve disputes intergovernmentally, right? And at times then when we don't quite agree, that's why we have courts. And this is the same everywhere. I was just checking the number of cases that US states filed against the Trump government in the last 2 years. There are over 100. So this is normal. And two, clawback globally of decentralization, because devolution is a form of decentralization, doesn't really have to happen through change of law. It mostly happens through, administrative procedures,
Yep.
right? Bureaucrats, sometimes even middle-level bureaucrats at national government might send out circulars and do certain things which then impede or gridlock implementation by decentralized units. And this is why we have IBEC, the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, headed by chaired by the Deputy President, where we meet and discuss these things. And many times we disagree, many times we agree. We have summit, where as a body of governors, the council, we may even disagree with the president, right? And we come back together again to see how we refine, certain procedures. So I would say, largely, we've done very well.
Right.
And sometimes some of those administrative interventions are necessitated not so much by, the clamor for clawback, but just to get things more standardized, right? Especially in the area of health, technology, equipment, for instance. We might be quite protective of that space as governors, but again, when you look at what, for instance, the NESP, the National Equipment Support Program, has done, and sometimes we ask ourselves, could we have done this individually, as single counties? So clawback is something that we always, as governors, have to be wary of. But this is why then there are these elaborate arrangements of intergovernmental architecture. And this is why also sometimes we go to the Senate and tell the Senate, this is not acceptable to us. And the Senate, much as we have a lot of other differences on other things, still remains and is the key protector of counties, protecting counties against Big Brother, protecting counties against themselves. So this is part of the robust architectural framework that we have. We have over 42, I think by the last time I checked, intergovernmental partnership agreements between county and national government. And we take this through a lot of, legal procedure. We get, lawyers to look at them to see, how it could end, whether it is a clawback through the back door. And by the time we agree to sign those intergovernmental partnership agreements at a full council, then we are fairly confident that it's an arrangement that works for us. Of course, clawback is not only by national government, or the fear of clawback is not only with respect to the national government. Increasingly, it's also with the National Assembly. And because the National Assembly is also becoming quasi-executive by virtue of the funds they handle, CDF, I don't want to get to the politics of that. There's Matters Equalization Fund.
It's for accountability.
Right, Matters Equalization Fund. So the strict, separation of powers between executive, legislature, and the judiciary, and especially between executive and legislature, and the realities of our political patronage. I think those are things that will be with us for quite some time. But generally, I think this current administration has respected our space. Thank you.
We, the people, have created layers of accountability for the devolution unit, the devolved units. there's the county assembly, there's the Senate, and of course there's directly the people of Kenya. You have a council of governors. Do you use that council of governors as an accountability tool where you self-check and you self-call out for, I don't know how else to put it, for bad behavior?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, as chair of council, I don't have the, constitutional office powers that the people sitting on this panel with me have. I'm just a first among equals. I get elected. So the next year I will be elected on the 8th of October. So I'm more of a union official. But having said that, we also have, benchmarking and best practices and advisory and conversations that, out of respect, I can have as chair with individual governors. But I get this quite a lot when I visit counties where the public complain to me about their governors. So that's not my role as chair of council. But we try to do this through benchmarking, by sharing best practices, by not reinventing the wheel, and by also having honest conversations in our, council meetings. There are things I have publicly said as council chair, that as a leadership we will not, protect non-remittances of statutory reductions or, continued, budgeting of pending bills. And these are conversations that we have as governors, but the architecture is not such that the COG is not an oversight body, right? It is an intergovernmental relation outfit. Thank you.
It's an association, a club.
Yes. And then the other question of the layers of oversight, this is a live debate that we're having now. Where does the oversight role of county assembly end and where does that of the Senate begin? And I know there's a panelist who said county assemblies may not have, what it takes to oversight. I mean, it probably is then what are the requirements of being a county assembly member? Until very recently, the only positions that required any qualification was president and governor and their deputies. Everyone else could be elected with an ID. Now the courts have also said governors, like everybody else, need not have a degree. So those are debates that we have. We try to resist, as a council, appearing before the Senate for day-to-day operational accountability and argue that that is best left to our CECs and the Assembly, and that the Senate comes in on big matters, on policy, when there's a crisis, when there's impeachment. But the court disagreed with us, so we have to appear before Senate as governors, and at times get asked why a bean card in a facility 300 kilometers from where you are has not been signed. So, the interpretation of law is done by the courts. We stand guided by the decisions of court until such a time when that changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor. Your Excellency and honorable panelists, you'll acknowledge that we are actually making reference to the supreme law of the land. And the fact that we actually have a supreme law of the land that is so well known by many people is a big gain, like we've all said. And the fact that we can have such a day to hold ourselves accountable for what we are doing with the office, the high office that we've been given, is also a big plus. I'd like to come final round as we conclude this panel to look at institution level and the Constitution. And I'll start with you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. You understand this Constitution very well. You participated in the making of this Constitution well, as did the President and the Honorable Speaker and the Honorable Chief Justice, everybody. But looking at the Constitution as it is now, and the institution of Parliament as we have created it, are there aspects of the Constitution that we have not gotten to the full realization of, whose benefits we are not yet reaping from Parliament? And are there ways in which the Constitution ties your hands as representatives of the people?
Thank you, Latif. When we take the oath of office, we swear to uphold and protect the Constitution. It's an obligation under Article 3 for every Kenyan, including yourself. You're bound to protect, uphold, and defend the Constitution. So that is something we must do. But as legislators, yes, there's ongoing discussions constantly. We have a committee on a Constitution Implementation Committee in Parliament. Its job is to constantly review various departments of the executive to find out if they have implemented the Constitution. So they're constantly bringing reports, and a lot of their recommendations have helped because they're able to look at the list on the schedules, what should have been implemented by what date, and they are ensuring that that is actually happening. So that is the role of Parliament. So Parliament can't just amend the Constitution, but our job is to have the Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee. But yes, there is also conversations in the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. I know which I sit on, when we have met the Electoral Commission and so on, and other arms of government, they say this probably needs to be changed. And what we have done is we normally give that report of requests to the Implementation Committee, and they are keeping a bank of that, so that when the time comes, when the Kenyans think that we should change the Constitution, there will be a reference book and a reference document. So that is available in Parliament. And they've also taken stock of what needs to go to a referendum and what can be changed under parliamentary initiative.
What fruits are we not reaping from this Constitution?
Sorry?
What fruits are we not reaping? Are there any fruits that are contained in the tree of the Parliament that we are not enjoying yet?
Within Parliament or the Constitution?
As the people of Kenya, we the people.
No, I think, like I said, having a Constitution is not an event. It is a process. So we are walking that journey now. And that is why I want to thank Your Excellency for convening this, because this is a time for self-reflection as a country. It's giving us a chance to make this a conversation. And just the way His Excellency also said that we need to look at Vision 2060. And again, that is something that the public will be involved in it. And I think this is probably the first time it has happened in the country, because that is how we improve.
Well, I think you're getting everything from the Senate.
What more could we get out of the Senate?
One area that we felt as a Senate need to be, clarity ought to be brought to bear is the mandate of the Senate and the working relationship between the Senate and the National Assembly. And for this Parliament, the working relation has been pretty good because I and Senator Wetangula tend to agree on a number of issues. But take, for example, the last Parliament. The Speaker of the Senate and the Speaker of the National Assembly are not seeing eye to eye. So we do not want to see this based on personal relationship between the office holders. We need a clear law that will define how these two houses work. And that's why the Senate has come up with a constitutional amendment. One, to expand the mandate of the Senate, and two, to bring clarity on how we can work together with our sister house, the National Assembly.
Thank you very much. I'll just skip to Honorable Governor Abdullahi, and then we shall conclude with the Honorable Chief Justice and His Excellency the President. From our wordings and the spirit and letter of our Constitution, when we said we'd like to devolve power and to devolve some functions so that we have closer governance and closer decision-making to our people, in your experience in the last 10 years as governor, what are we not benefiting from yet from the devolution as envisaged in the Constitution? And what can we do to get there?
Thank you. Eric, as I said, in many ways, devolution has done its bit to equalize this country. The kind of devolution we have is not one of political power in that sense, if I look at it rightly. It's one of economic devolution. It is of service delivery, the things that matter. given our diversity also, it might have been the right thing to do. Because I know countries next door where there is ethnic federalism and states sometimes fight. You know, one state picks up arms against the neighboring state. I think it's good that we didn't go that way, and that what we devolved is basic services and resources and decision-making over those resources. Of course, even for functions that are devolved, policy and standards are still with the national government. And the question of accountability, which what we are discussing here, especially with respect to fiscal management, at times also may limit how much you decentralize decisions with respect to resources. Because if you take them then very low and you're responsible for answering the audit queries in the houses of Senate and Parliament or wherever, and the Assembly, it can look a bit counterproductive. And counties have been accused of not also devolving certain decision making much lower. I think the other thing that I'll probably speak to is the nexus between county service delivery, county government enforcement, and enforcement generally, because the level of enforcement that our people know generally is uniformed enforcement. County askaris can only carry rungus. So at times, we may increasingly are seeing that bylaws made by counties may not get as much support in enforcement as national laws would. I think this is probably an area that we need to look at, and that probably also speaks to why the county policing authorities are not enforced up to now, because of resistance from police operations teams. So those are areas. How can we strengthen counties to have better enforcement? How can we require them to devolve their services further? Those are conversations that we can have. But generally, I think a lot has improved. As I said, our intergovernmental relations is much better today than when we started 13 years back, right? But overall, of course, expectations also shift. The expectations that there were in 2013 are not the same expectations. And a lot of times, a county's performance may be judged by what the loudest MP from that county said on the floor of the House, as opposed to actual reports by oversight authorities. This is part of our politics, which we have to deal with. Lastly, maybe to protect counties, I have a lot of respect for my brother Abdul Qadir Mohammed there, and I don't think I have the qualification to argue with him on matters legal. I'm a simple accountant, but I have disagreed bitterly with him on the question of impeachment, and as to whether impeachment is a political decision or a legal decision in a presidential system. And also, I might be clouded by the political realities of our counties. We have had a governor who was impeached before she formed her cabinet. And she kept being impeached until she was finally impeached, right? And had to go home. So I think the courts have some role in protecting, such governors where for sociocultural reasons probably people thought they made a mistake in electing so-and-so and will get rid of so-and-so regardless.
Yeah.
So I think, it's not fair that you cannot recall a member of parliament for the first 24 months. And then you can't recall them for the last 12 months. But you can impeach a governor before they have formed government. Those are some of the things we need to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Governor. I want to come to you, Honorable Chief Justice. Again, as we take stock of 16 years of our Constitution, as the third Chief Justice under this Constitution, and having served in the judiciary even before rising to the highest office in the judiciary, what do you think we could gain more from greater cooperation and interdependence with the other two arms of government. And so we'll start by saying what we are not getting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just like the Deputy Speaker, what I can say is that our mandate as the judiciary is always to breathe life and spirit to the Constitution as it is. And what I can say is that Kenyans have full confidence in our Constitution and in the institution of the judiciary because they keep bringing disputes to us. And judiciary has courageously interpreted the Constitution. I heard some of the panelists saying that the judiciary overreaches. When there is an issue of overreach, because also the jurisdiction is given to the courts by the very, very Constitution, that is why we have the hierarchy of courts. If you are dissatisfied with the decision from the magistrates, you can appeal in the High Court, Court of Appeal, and if the law allows, you can come all the way to the Supreme Court. Now, when it comes to challenges, we have many. For instance, the Constitution created the Judiciary Fund. And I'm surprised that if you did not ask the other colleagues what they are doing about corruption. Judiciary gets only 1% of the national, actually less than 1% of the national shareable budget. And when you ask about corruption, you should have asked, where does the other 99% of the shareable budget go?
Good question.
Are there corruption also in the ministries, in the procurement, in other things? Because you only zeroed in on judiciary. You should have asked the other question, because here people said we have huge poverty levels in our country. That is a problem, because if we implemented this Constitution the way it is supposed to be implemented, then we cannot be talking about high levels of poverty, and even these people come to us in the judiciary. They need legal services, they need legal aid, and we see it. So because we live in this country, but we say this is our country. Whatever is not working, we must fix it. And that is the spirit within which we are meeting here today, to introspect and see what it is that we can do better as a country. How can we work together as the three arms of government supported by the constitutional commissions to fix all the things that are not working? For instance, we in the judiciary do not seek for cases. Kenyans come to court. And because this Constitution has given them the right, when you compare this Constitution with the old Constitution, you could not take the government to court. You could not obtain an injunction. You could not obtain a conservatory order against the government. But this one allows any citizen even to come to court on their own right or on behalf of another citizen. It allows everybody the right to bail. It doesn't matter what offense they have committed. So we are grappling also with understanding our mandates. We are grappling with understanding the checks and balances. But what I can say is that we need to sustain this institutional dialogue.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we are all serving one Kenyan. And one Kenyan who is failed in the delivery of service anywhere, be it at the police, be it at the court, be it in the hospitals, they say the government has failed us. So we have to continue with this dialogue and see where we need to put resources. In the judiciary, you can see the Supreme Court. It looks actually very dilapidated. Your Excellency, you renovated the State House recently. Look at the Supreme Court. We need institutions that can even reflect the power, the authority, and the mandate that is given to the institution of the judiciary. Our budget is so meager so that even as we say we want to reach the last mile, we have now 60 small claims courts. Everybody in the 150 court stations we have is asking for a small claims court because this is how you reach the ordinary Mwananchi. But the budget does not allow us to do that. We are required to have courts in every sub-county, and that I understand it to be a constituency. We only have 150. We still have a long way to go, and this is because of the budgetary constraints. But recently, we came up with a master plan and a roadmap of how we can reach to all these counties, sub-counties, with the High Court, with the Magistrates Court, and small claims courts, and with the alternative justice system. We have mapped the whole country. We understand where we need to go. And now because we understand the budgetary constraints, and we are also Kenyans, we live here. Our country is like your mother. You know what your mother can give you and what your mother cannot be able to give you. But there are certain priorities, especially when it comes to justice needs that we need to address through more budgetary allocation.
Thank you very much.
That is the problem I have found in the implementation of the mandate of the judiciary to access justice to everybody. We are not able to reach everybody because of the budgetary constraints. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chief Justice. I want to conclude with you, Your Excellency, President. You occupy a very high office, head of state and government. Head of state means that you are a symbol of this republic. And I want to speak to you from that level, looking back, because you have participated in this constitution journey, before Bomas, into Bomas, out of Bomas, into Naivasha, into Parliament, into the referendum, into implementing it as the first deputy president under this constitution and the second president under this constitution. So far, what are the gains? Because we've talked about the gains that we have, and we can all acknowledge the gains that we have, and you reflected on them in your opening remarks. What are these things that we are yet to realize, we the people? And how can we get there? What do we need to do to get there, to realize the aspirations and the great dreams of our Constitution?
Thank you very much, Eric. And because I don't intend to make any further remarks, including what was listed as closing remarks, I will just finalize on my statement now so that we can bring this occasion to a close. First, let me say the following as I come to answer what you have asked me. That I'm very proud that we are able to sit down in the manner in which we have done and ask ourselves very candidly, very pointed, accountability questions from what you have asked me about the matter of cabinet, to members of parliament on the letters, to Madam Chief Justice here. It just goes a long way in, putting in context the great country that we have, that we can stomach any inquiry into what we are doing as citizens and as leaders. The fact that, this occasion, the Katiba Day, when I thought about it, and I thought about this in the context of what you have said, I participated in Bomas. I participated in Naivasha. There was a Kilifi draft. I was the first deputy president under this constitution. And today I have the privilege to be the second president under this constitution. There is a journey that we have traveled as a country. And as head of state of this country today, I am very proud that this Katiba Day is not just another occasion. It's not just another celebration. It is a place where we call ourselves and ask ourselves difficult questions. Have we done what the Constitution expected of us? And why I am very proud about this moment is because I have managed to bring the country to a place where we can candidly ask ourselves questions. Last week, I was here in KICC on one of our primary subjects, that is universal health coverage. And I spent 5 hours the first day, 5 hours the second day, answering citizens, having an engagement with citizens. As president, that does not happen in ordinary circumstances. No other president has done what I have done. I have put myself at a place where I can be questioned and taken questions and answered. So I think this is a good place for us as a country, number one. Number two, we have made very good progress. As somebody who worked under the old constitution and the new constitution, I can proudly say, as others have said here, Mutava Mushimi, all the other good people, including Abdikadir and all the other people, that we have made progress. Of course, we could have done better, but that does not discount the progress that we have made. In different spaces, devolution, for example, which is probably the biggest gain that this constitution brought. There are many arguments as to whether devolution has worked or has it not worked. From where I sit, I think we were right to have devolution. Devolution has served this nation. Could it have been better? Yes. Are there challenges? Yes. But that does not discount what devolution has done to our country. Specifically, for example, the biggest subject, health. I see many people trying to argue that maybe health should be reverted to national government. I am completely opposed. I think health is in the right place in county governments. Why do I say that? If you look at delivery of health, there are counties where we had only one doctor. Example, Wajir here. Today, there are 70. There are many more health workers. Supervision has been devolved from the national government to the county. County workforce, health professionals are held to account. In the past, there used to be doctors who never reported to their stations for 10 years and nobody knew. That is no longer possible. The county governments have appropriated that space properly. And so, have they done many other things better than was the case in the old system? Let me also say, having served as the first chairperson of the Intergovernmental Budget and IBEC, that we started off with a lot of territorial fight between the national government and the county government. And rightfully so, because there was still a hangover by the national government to try and control counties. And then there was also, a bit of that, I must admit. But progressively, we have come to appreciate that there are roles assigned to counties. there are responsibilities and mandate assigned to the national government. And that way, we have found a way of living together. In fact, I have had a wonderful 4 years working with county governments, maybe because I had the benefit of what happened in the last 10 years. And we have signed, as Abdullahi has said, many intergovernmental participation agreements. We have done, for example, the registration of farmers, which was a very big thing. Now we have a register of all farmers. It was a joint project between national government and county governments. We have community health promoters. Today, we pay community health promoters jointly. The community health promoters are doing a fantastic job. Today, we have signed an intergovernmental partnership agreement on matters health. I would have chosen, for example, to say health is a devolved function and I should have nothing to do with it. But we sat down with counties and we said there is a role where national government can support counties in delivery of a mandate that is assigned to counties, and that is purely constitutional. The Constitution, provides for that kind of mechanism. And we use that mechanism to improve health outcomes. Today, we have more citizens registered on social health. Today, we have more citizens treated. Today, we have better delivery of equipment. We signed a partnership agreement with counties. Today, they get equipment that they don't have to pay for because of the agreement we have signed, and they are using those equipments to deliver health and get paid for by SHA. So I can say confidently that counties are better placed when there is a better relationship between the counties and the national government. That is not to say there are no challenges. Yes, there are challenges here and there, but continuously we keep resolving those challenges. Let me give you one challenge, for example. On matters to do with housing, there was a challenge on whether housing is completely devolved or there is a role for national government. And we managed to resolve it, by making sure that we established under the housing fund a place where the housing fund has representation from the national government and the county government, and it made it easier for us to make steps to go forward. Let me leave that there. And having said that, I can say with confidence that our decision as a people, as a nation, to have counties in place was the right decision. But I hear what Mutava Mushimi is saying. That is it too expensive? Can something be done about it? That is a conversation Kenyans can have, on how do we make them much more effective? That is, or the size of parliament for that matter. That is a conversation we can have as a nation. Let me come to what was said by my elder sister here, the Madam Chief Justice. I think if there is one very progressive area that we can confidently say as a nation that we did very well under this constitution is our judiciary. I think the judiciary today has maybe more latitude than they need, if I may say that. I think we overgave ourselves the space around judiciary because they can literally do anything, which is possibly a good thing, so that they can limit the power of government. They can also interpret legislation in this or the other way. But what I can say about the judiciary is that even as we celebrate the place of any citizen being able to go to court and challenge everything, there is always the argument that I want to make, and I have brought it up with the Chief Justice. For example, we go to the people and we tell the people housing is a mandate, a command under Article 43 for government to provide adequate, dignified housing. You go to the public with a manifesto, you tell the people how that right is going to be realized, and the people give you the mandate. 7-8 million people, Kenyans, vote, and they say, proceed. And then one person, possibly the name that comes into mind is the one you know, goes to court and stops the whole process, you know? Now, the question you ask yourself is, what is the place of this one person in the context of the 8 million who voted for this right? And secondly, this right is in the Constitution. So that's the question, again, that maybe the judiciary, on their own wisdom, may want to think about balancing the right of every citizen to challenge whatever is being done as against the right of others who believe that that right should be achieved. And also the right of government to live up to the constitutional demand for them, for citizens, to have decent housing. You know? So this is, again, a place where we possibly may want to have a conversation around. I don't think it amounts to changing the Constitution. I think it is by way of practice and all of us looking at what are the possibilities. Because, and I will come to this later, in terms of my perspective as to what areas haven't we, I will come to answer that question. But having said that, I think I have had a wonderful relationship with the judiciary under my administration. They have cornered me in many places. They have brought down some of the things I wanted to do. But in some cases, they have made very useful proposals. You know, they have told us, for example, go and change the law so that it's not just those who are salaried who pay for housing, let all others pay. Very, very progressive, you know. They have also told us in other areas, maybe change the law so that you do this. So again, I cannot wholesome say they have done something that has stopped us. They've, in very many cases, enriched our, you know, proposal on how to get things done. But to the words of the Chief Justice here, and she has said, and rightfully so, that there is a budget issue, which is an issue, again, we must have a conversation as citizens. Should we pay taxes? Should we not? Should we borrow more money to do what we have to do? Or how do we borrow responsibly? So this is, again, another conversation, because the bottom line of all this thing about budget is taxes. Yes. I mean, we must have a candid conversation. Today, there is a big argument that Kenyans are overtaxed. We need to have a conversation. Is it based on empirical evidence? To my reflection, we are at 14, maybe 15%. Our taxes are 15% of GDP. The highest country, France, is 45% of GDP. They pay 45% of GDP. We pay 15%. South Africa pays 25% of GDP. So is the argument that we are overtaxing ourselves right, or is it not? And is it possible for us to provide for every service that we need without thinking of where we are going to raise the revenue for us to do that. This is again another conversation that speaks to what Mutaba Mushimi was saying as to affordability of government. But to my defense, I can say here that we have increased the budget for the judiciary from 18 billion when I came into office to 30 billion today. We have almost doubled the budget. That's the correct position. Under my administration, I think, together with the Judicial Service Commission, we have hired the highest number of judges any administration has hired. In my 4 short years, I think, Madam Chief Justice, I think you, myself, and your JSC has hired close to 100 judges. So we have made a contribution. Maybe we have not reached where we should. I sympathize that the building of the judiciary is not in very good shape. But I don't know whether you really want to renovate, because you have to be ready for the consequences of renovation. The audit out there is very vicious. You know, you don't know how much shit I've gone through on lectures on whether it was the right thing to renovate the State House. I've tried to make argument that this place was leaking. This is the address of the people of Kenya, any citizen, but I don't know whether I've succeeded. So as you think about renovating and rebuilding judiciary, I will warn you that there will be consequences for that. But I guess you have the mettle for it. And I think with the new facility that we have negotiated with yourselves and the World Bank, we now have a facility of about 20 billion shillings to be able to rethink about how we can empower the judiciary to do more. I think we have done a couple of other things, including looking at the retirement benefits of judicial officers, their transport, and many other things, which I don't want to say. But I think we have tried to make a contribution in that direction. Let me say finally that from where I sit, maybe I should say from where I stand, the whole space around accountability is a space that I think we need more work. To your question now, Latif, the whole space around accountability is a place we need to do more work. Why do I say so? We have had arguments on who needs to prosecute. We have had issues raised by citizens on why the DPP enters, withdraws cases. We've had issues, what the chair of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption has said here, on prosecutorial powers to be given to the EACC, the delay in the processes. There are too many processes that ultimately that becomes a challenge. I think those are very valid. You know, even from where I sit, these are very valid proposals that we must internalize and do something about. But having said that, there is more that we can also do by way of prevention. And I remember making this statement before the last election. I said, in my administration, there will be no money to steal. And I meant it. And how have we stopped or prevented loss of public resources? Number one is what was said here by somebody, digitization. Just by digitizing government services and payment, we have significantly reduced transactions in cash that end up being areas of corruption. Today, I can confidently say we have eliminated paying for government services using cash. And this is to enhance accountability, traceability, and who pays what. We had 1,000 plus government pay bills, all in shady places. Today we have one. And the Treasury can see all government payments and where it is going. Number two, we have implemented what we call Treasury Single Account. Treasury Single Account enables government to see how much money we have in which places and how much idle money there is in government. We used to go to borrow using the instruments that we have, and most of the time we borrowed money which we had, you know? And sometimes we went to the market to borrow our own money. And it was not very intelligent. I don't want to say it was foolish. So we have eliminated that, and John Buddy is here, and we have made huge savings just by making sure that we have all our money with our visibility. Number three, and by the way, this single treasury account was a conversation that was there for almost 15 years, but there was no courage to implement it because there were people benefiting from these dark places. Number three, we have implemented what we call electronic EGP, electronic government, electronic procurement. We've made the whole procurement of government services transparent. John Buddy was telling me an item, say for example a pen, procured by government on 17th floor was different price procured by another ministry on 10th floor. That is no longer possible because we have standardized procurement. We know how much it costs, and every government entity pays the same for the same service or for the same commodities or other procurement products. Again, we are possibly saving up to 10% of all our procurement just by making e-procurement possible. I can tell you, we've gone through hell trying to implement this. The amount of requests we've been asked to excuse, or you know, our issues are very urgent, or you know, these issues are very sensitive, or these issues. But I want to thank John Buddy, he has said no. And we are forcing everybody to go through the mill. We've also done one thing, which Abdikadir will tell you how difficult it is to do. The issue of the government-owned enterprises law. This man, Abdikadir, came with it, I think 15 years ago, 13 years ago. But it was not possible to implement it. Because what did it say? It set the bar for the people who are appointed into boards of government agencies. It actually said that we need to advertise for those positions. And it was very difficult politically, you know, to do it. Because you go into an election with many friends, partners, people who have supported you, people who have gone to the trenches with you, you win an election, and then they are there. You have to do something about them. You know? And you know, politically, you can't just wish them away because they will make demands and say, my friend, you wouldn't be there if it was not for us. Legitimately so. But what have you done now? We went to Parliament, and I want to say this about Parliament. I know there are many accusations that Parliament has gone through, that they are a rubber stamp for the executive. I don't know, they are not holding government to account. If there was a difficult bill to pass, and I must give credit to the 13th Parliament, they passed it. It is the government-owned enterprises law. Literally saying that those people passing the bill will not qualify to be appointed into parastatals when they are not sitting in parliament. You know how, and you know, all these politics are very slippery place. You are in today, you can be out tomorrow. So, but I want to credit the 13th Parliament. They passed this law. I signed it into law. And today, many of my friends who I had appointed to boards in Kenyan, in Kenya Airports Authority, in Kenya, I don't know where, Kenya Pipeline, and many other places, they have had to exit. Because now the law says those who participated in the last election cannot be board members. I have lost a few friends, but it comes with what it is. And why are we doing this? We want to, as much as possible, professionalize the running of government agencies and to depoliticize those boards. And again, I must say that has worked in a very significant way. And then finally, we have, and I'm talking to accountability, we have also, number 5, we passed the conflict of interest bill into law. Again, very many members of parliament, members of Senate are very unhappy about this bill because it literally says members of their families cannot participate in procurement or supply of goods and services to government. Again, it was to establish a distance between those who wield authority or power, whether they are sitting in parliament or they are sitting in the executive. I don't know whether we extended to the judiciary, I don't think we did, cannot participate because they have the propensity to influence those contracts this way or the other. Again, I can confidently tell the country we passed that law. And we are progressively, pushing corruption to the limits, even as we do the other things. You remember it was said here earlier, what about the ethics part? What about what other, apart from prosecution and all this, are there other things being done to deal with corruption? This is part of it. And we've worked with criminal justice system to work on this. And then allow me to say 2 final things, which, speaking to what the other panelists have said, I agree entirely with the assessment of Mutava Mushimi on the subject of us having and what we are doing about poor people in our country. There is a message that Mutava Mushimi is saying, that those of us in positions of responsibility, myself and these great people and all of you seated here, which we cannot lose focus on. What are we doing about equity? How are we working to make sure that every citizen has meaning in Kenya? It's okay, for us to defend our salaries, for us to demonstrate, ask for more salaries, but what about the people who have no salary? What about the people who have no jobs? What about the poor people? This is something that we must pay attention to. There are some people, and I'm afraid to say this, that believe that there are citizens who are born to be poor. I think that is tragic. Because I hear arguments when I was pushing for the housing levy. And many people were telling me How is it our business to make sure the people living in slums who have no decent dwelling places, how is it our business to assist them to get decent housing? It's a very, reasonable question, but looking at it from the other side is very callous. I mean, it shows how insensitive we are, that we have people who live in slums, that it doesn't concern you that there is a citizen who uses a flying toilet. It doesn't concern, you're not bothered. I mean, you really have to have a heart of stone, not to think about fellow citizens who have to pay to use a toilet. I mean, it is something that must concern us. And that is, I think, what my good brother there was saying. Or a citizen who decides to stay at home, they are sick, but they prefer to stay at home and die because they have no means of getting medical treatment. I think that is something that should concern us. And as a result, it takes me to the place where we've not done very well. We've done very well with what Abdikadir said, political rights. We are a robustly democratic country. We vote whoever we want. We can picket, we can demonstrate, we can do whatever, literally, whatever we want. That we have done very well, and we must credit ourselves for it. But there is the other side of it. What have we done to make sure that every child will go to school? Everybody has medical attention. We have decent housing. We have eliminated hunger. And we have done all the other constitutional commands. That is the place that we haven't done very well. And that is where we must focus going into the future. And that is why I am inviting all of us to have a national conversation, on the future of Kenya, a development charter for ourselves, so that we can enjoy our democratic rights, but also make sure that every citizen lives a dignified life. I think these are the two, sides of what we must achieve. And I say this with a lot of humility, that it's upon us, to do whatever it is that we can to make sure that we deliver on these two commitments. Let me say this. Our right to choose, our democratic right to choose, must be exercised in choosing what is best for everybody, or what is best for us. We should be able to make the best choices for Kenya. And again, let me paraphrase what Abdikadir said. If you choose a thief and expect that they will not steal from you, you are not being intelligent. If you choose somebody who is incompetent and expect them to deliver on anything, then you are not being serious. If you choose a person who has no vision, who has no plan, who has no agenda, and expect them to take your country anywhere, then you are not being serious. I think these are the choices that are on the table for us. And finally, I have spoken for too long. Why I like this meeting, and it is good that we are talking about our constitution in a forum like this, that intellectuals are present. is that Mutava Mushimi can say some of the things politicians cannot say. And Abdikadir can say some of the things politicians cannot say. And my good bishop can also say some of the things that are difficult for politicians to say. But they must be said. So this is a good forum for us to engage without defending ourselves that much. And finally, I think we need to do more. We have gaps in matters to do with our gender equity. I think we can do something about the 2/3 gender rule. And I think I can do something about making the, not just the 2/3 gender rule, but also the constitutionality of our cabinet. I think that is a space that even me, I have some homework to do on matters to do with gender and all that. If I was given an opportunity, I would try to mitigate my situation by saying, at least I have the first ever Attorney General who is a woman, whom I have appointed. And I can also try and mitigate my case by saying, by appointment, maybe the cabinet does not meet the 2/3 gender rule, but by operation, it does. Because I not only have the AG, but also the Secretary to Cabinet sitting in my cabinet. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. So I want to say to all of us, this is a very good conversation, Madam Chief Justice, I think. And Abdullahi, my good friend from the Council of Governors and the Houses of Parliament, I want to say to all of us, thank you very much. I think this is time we have spent very well. And thank you, Eric, for provoking us. Asante sana.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a standing ovation to our panel, please. And a round of applause as I welcome Michael Gitonga to come and take over to the next space. I'd like us to do something. Every 27th of August going forward, always remember it's a day of victory for we, the people. And I'd like us to say this together. 16 years ago, we, the people, gave ourselves this constitution. And our head of state went ahead to say, our responsibility today is to fulfill its promise and build a democratic, prosperous, and transformed republic. So repeat after me. Our responsibility today is to fulfill its promise and build a democratic, prosperous, and transformed republic. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. I'll request that we remain standing, and as His Excellency takes back his seat and the panelists, kindly let's take back our seats. And I'll request just one thing as we do that, because we'd like to clear the stage. We have one more thing we'd like to do, the conferment of Katiba Awards, which is going to be a very short part of it. I want us to just keep standing, and let's play a song to Shangilie Kenya as we... Let's take our seats. And Your Excellency, we only have one more item on our program, and that is the conferment of the Katiba Awards. So with your permission, allow me to invite the Head of Public Service to lead us through a brief state of investiture ceremony for conferment of Katiba Awards. Welcome, sir. Tumkaribishe kwa makofi tafadhali.
Thank you. Thank you. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this part of the Katiba Day commemoration is convened pursuant to Article 132(4)(c) of the Constitution and the Kenya Heroes Act 2014 to recognize three eminent Kenyans whose service has left an enduring mark upon our nation's constitutional journey. On this 16th anniversary of the promulgation of the Constitution, the Republic pays tribute to those who devoted their intellect, courage, and conviction to its making and have remained steadfast custodians of its promise. In recognition of that distinguished service, their names shall be entered into the roll of national heroes under the category of statesmanship and each accorded the title Shujaa wa Katiba. This recognition carries forward a tradition inaugurated at the promulgation of the Constitution in 2010, when a special Constitution promulgation commemorative award was conferred for distinguished leadership in steering the Constitution through Parliament and towards promulgation. Your Excellency, today's honorees join the Honorable Abdikadir Mohammed, the first and until today only recipient of that special constitutional recognition. Together, their service is firmly inscribed in the constitutional history of our republic, and a grateful nation now accords them their rightful place among its heroes. May it please Your Excellency to take your position in the arena for 1 minute, Your Excellency. And in the name and on behalf of the people of Kenya, formally recognize the following Mashujaa wa Katiba. The first is...
With uncommon wisdom and unwavering dedication, Professor Yashpal Gai led Kenya's constitutional dawn. As chair of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, he forged a people-driven charter that enshrined in the powerful Bill of Rights, devolution, and rule of law. Through the Katiba Institute, which he founded with Dr. Jill Cottrell Gai, he has tirelessly defended these democratic pillars, often without fee. A scholar of global renown, his counsel has shaped constitution across more than 20 nations. The award will be received on his behalf by the President of the Law Society of Kenya. So let's put our hands together as they come to receive it on behalf of the statesman, mentor, and guardian of the Kenya Katiba, Professor Yashpal Gai, who embodied the highest ideals of public service, deserving of being entered into the role of our national honors as a Shujaa wa Katiba. Thank you.
Thank you. The second person to receive this award is the Honorable Dr. Willie Mutunga, Senior Counsel.
With fearless principle and lifelong commitment to justice, Dr. Willie Mutunga stood at the vanguard of Kenya's democratic transformation. As for the first indigenous Kenyan to teach constitutional law, he nurtured generations of legal minds. He gave voice to the voiceless through the Kenyan Human Rights Commission and Kituo cha Sheria. As the president of the Law Society of Kenya, he became a steadfast champion of the multi-party democracy. As the inaugural Chief Justice under the new constitution, he reformed the judiciary with integrity by professionalizing its ranks, combating corruption, and issuing the Mutunga rules that anchored the constitution. A round of applause for Honorable Dr. Willie Mutunga. Perhaps we'll proceed to the next one, maybe a member of the judiciary, perhaps to receive it on his behalf. Honorable Chief Justice Martha Koome to receive it on his behalf. A round of applause, please.
The third and the final Shujaa wa Katiba is Professor Wanjiku Kabira.
With intellectual rigor and unshakable commitment to women's empowerment, Professor Wanjiku Kibira helped give Kenya its transformative constitution. As vice chair of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, she led nationwide civic education that brought the Katiba to the people. She championed women's economic rights, enshrining in Article 43 of the Promise Opportunity of Dignity. As a professor and founder of the University of Nairobi's African Women Studies Center, she cultivated generations of women's leaders and now shapes the nation. Scholar, advocate, and architect of equality, Professor Wanjiku Kibira stands as a beacon of justice and progress. For her immense contribution, she is entered into the role of National Heroes of Shujaa wa Katiba.
Your Excellency, sir, you may now resume your seat. Thank you.
We are now getting closer to the end of our session this afternoon, well, which started literally 6 hours ago. So 6 hours of sitting through this, you need to give yourselves a hand. Also as Mashujaa wa Katiba for that protection of the Katiba. Your Excellency, sir, it is now time for us to retreat of the instruments of state. So I'll request that we be upstanding as we retreat the instruments of state. I invite the band to give us the song as we now withdraw the instruments of power that are here before us.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Rais. Nitaomba kwa heshima mwanasheria mkuu aweze kuondoa nakala ya katiba mahali ambapo iliweza kuwekwa ili wanajeshi wetu waweze kuendelea na shughuli za kuondoa vyombo hivi vya mamlaka tunapokamilisha hafla hii siku ya leo. Kujiuliza ni kwa nini katiba ya Kenya inaondolewa na mwanasheria mkuu. Kenya ni nchi ambayo inatawala ama utawala wake ni wa kiraia. Ndiposa vyombo vyote vya mamlaka ambavyo vimesalia vinaletwa na kuondolewa na majeshi ya Kenya. Chini yake Regimental Sergeant Major Warrant Officer 1 Kiprono, wanajeshi hawa wakiweza kuchukua nafasi zao kuondoa vyombo hivi vya mamlaka. Kuweza kutazama Mheshimiwa Rais, hapa awali ni kwamba muhuri huu wa umma ni muhuri mzito ambapo utaweza kurejeshwa, utaweza kufunika kisha vyombo vingine vya mamlaka viweze kuondolewa. Asante bendi yetu, asante bendi. Mheshimiwa Rais, nitaomba kwa heshima tubaki tukiwa tumesimama kwa wimbo wa taifa, wimbo wa Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki, kisha baada ya hapo atatupa itifaki ya kufumukana sehemu hii.
Tazama viongozi wote